Hi, I'm Steve Shaughnessy, and welcome back to the Popular Woodworking Shop. We're on episode 5 now of our World War II era Unisaw restoration project. Let me take a minute and update you with what we've accomplished since the last one. We've made a table saw insert, a zero clearance insert. I've added a sacrificial wooden fence to the regular fence, and I built a motor cover to improve the dust collection capability of the machine. So let's look at this zero clearance insert a minute. It's made out of a solid piece of Baltic birch that's made to the exact thickness to rest on the supports here in the insert opening. Now, to make this curve cut, you can't use a 10-inch blade because if you lower the blade all the way, it still will not allow you to set the insert in. It'll interfere. So here's a trick for you. I use an 8-inch dado blade, mount that on the arbor all the way down, and then raise that blade to make the curve in the zero clearance insert. On these old style jetlock rip fences, it's good to add a sacrificial board here. This is just a piece of white oak that actually is screwed in from this side of the fence here. You want to make sure that fence is really straight though, so select your lumber, mill it carefully. So here's the motor cover I fabricated. It's made out of 1/4-inch Baltic birch, and you'll see when I opened it how I built it. It's really pretty simple. On the front, I put a hasp on it so to help keep it closed. So you can see here's the continuous hinge that I've mounted to a very simple pine frame that's screwed to the saw cabinet from the inside. Now, you can see how this was built. The Baltic birch was glued and nailed onto the pine strips, and then the other pieces that joined together were simply nailed to that pine strip as well. If you were wondering, I basically took the dimensions of this motor cover off the Unisaw I have at home. And as you can see, I've angled the bottom so that as the dust collects, it'll slide off and back into the saw cabinet. So you can see I don't have a blade guard here. Frankly, I haven't been able to find one yet, but I'm still in hot pursuit, so I'm going to make sure I get one soon. Okay, I think the big moment's arrived. I'm ready to take a cut on this baby. Let's see how she does. Well, as luck would have it, while taping the last episode, at just the moment we were about to turn the machine on, we flipped the switch and the motor conked out. Well, since then, I pulled the motor out of the machine, and boy was it filthy. We had to clean it up, and now we're going to put it back together, and I wanted to show you how that works. So let's take a look at these basic motor parts and see how they come together. Here we have what's obviously the pulley, which mounts on the end of the armature shaft here. This is the end cap for the motor housing. This opening right here is where the bearing fits on. Now, since I had the motor apart, I've replaced these old bearings, because remember, these were probably 40 to 50 years old. Next we have the armature. And the armature is interestingly insulated between each of these spaces with a piece of basswood. And then up here is the commutator. Now, what makes this motor interesting is the commutator is usually found on a universal motor as we know today, but in this repulsion induction motor, the armature serves a function of shorting out the motor in certain phase by a spring and what's called a short circuit necklace housed underneath this piece here. After doing some research on what the motor problem might be, I found that on the old Woodworking Machines website, which is a great resource, that there very likely might have been a problem with the spring underneath this cover. When I took the motor apart, I found the spring was stretched in several places, which I believe was causing the mechanism here to be stuck in the open position. So I took that spring and closed it back up so that it was tight again everywhere. I cleaned up the mechanism a little bit inside and reassembled it. Then up here we have the second bearing mounted on the shaft, which will fit into the other end of the motor housing. Now here in the main motor housing, we have what's called the field coil. And it's just a series of many copper wires wrapped around. This part here is called the brush holder. You'll notice that this particular motor requires 4 brushes, while your universal motors typically would have 2. And of course, these brushes are what connect to the commutator here. The brush holders fit inside this end bell cover, and this portion right here is the fitting for the bearing on the commutator end of the arbor. Okay, we're going to take it from the top here again. We got the motor back in, it's all put together, and where I left off, let's fire this baby up and see how she does. I'd say that was a nice cut. I think we're in great shape here. Once again, I'd like to thank the people on the Old Woodworking Machines website. They were a big help, helped me solve and analyze this problem, and they were a great group of guys. Now, to leave it here, I just want you to hear how quiet this motor runs now. It's really amazing. Yeah, okay. That's nice. See you next time.